Hi, my name's Tom. I'm standing here in an old painting shirt with an old closet door and an old drop cloth tacked up on the wall behind me because today I'm going to do some spray painting. And to do that, I'm going to use my new paint sprayer here. This is a HomeRight paint sprayer. If you've never heard of it, you're not alone. I've never heard of it either, but I saw it on Amazon. It was one of the best rated, relatively inexpensive paint sprayers, about $109, $110 on Amazon, but it had like 4.5 stars and 6,000 reviews. So I said, all right, what the heck, I'll go ahead and take a chance on it. I've used cheaper paint sprayers in the past, $40, $50 ones, and they always disappoint, but I'm going to decide to go ahead and go up to the $110 model. This is the paint sprayer, let's see here, the C800971. I'll leave a link down in the description below. But what I'm going to go ahead and do, I just received this in the mail literally yesterday. I have not yet even opened it. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick unboxing so you can kind of see what's in it. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to test it out on this old cabinet door or old closet door. And then if it works, I'm going to go ahead and use it on some new closet doors as well. I've set up a quick little makeshift table here just to take a look at what's actually inside this. There is the actual paint sprayer. It's actually a little bigger than I thought it was going to be. It's hefty there. It's got a little dial knob. There's the trigger. The cord is very, very short because you use an extension cord with these. Here's the actual tank. Little bit of accessories. There's a brush. There's an extra spray nozzle. There's different nozzles, a little wrench, and then a top for the actual tank right there. And then there are the instructions. The instructions are in multiple languages, and there we go. That's really all there is to it. There's not a whole lot there. Okay, so I've unboxed the sprayer, and here it is. I've actually gone ahead and plugged it into the extension cord, and it works fine. A little bit loud, but that's fine. One of the suggestions they give you for if you haven't actually used a sprayer in a while, and I haven't, is to go ahead and use the sprayer with some water. So here's the tank of water. I just filled it up with just plain old water on some cardboard, just to kind of see, or newspaper, just kind of see how it sprays, get a feel for the whole motion, kind of see what the sprayer pattern actually does. So here's what I'm going to do. I filled this tank with water. Let me see if I can screw it on straight here. Okay, here we go. This will also give you kind of an idea of what kind of weight I'm dealing with. The sprayer without this is probably about a pound, pound and a half. With this, it's probably good 2 or 3 pounds, maybe 4 pounds. It's not too bad. It is a very big handle. There's a large handle here. And the trigger is very large as well. You almost need 2 fingers to pull the trigger. It is all plastic, 100% plastic. The little compressor motor in here is obviously metal, but it is all plastic. Now I'm using the default air cap. This pops off, by the way. This screws right off. Let me see if I can do it without making the whole thing. So here's a little, there's a screw piece, and there's a little gap piece on here, and there's a nozzle on here, and that little wrench is actually used for the nozzle. And there's a guide in the book that tells you which nozzle to use and which air gap to use, depending upon your material, what you're spraying, the type of spray you want. So I'm kind of sticking with the medium. This is the black air gap with the green nozzle, which is kind of the medium setting for all the different materials. But again, I'm just going to give it a shot here with water. Another thing I can do, by the way, I can control my spray. I can make it a vertical spray, so it kind of sprays up and down. I'll make it a horizontal spray back and forth, and make it a round spray as well. I'm not sure what setting this is, so I'm just going to go ahead and find out here. So here we go on some cardboard. There you go. Okay, I want to be about, let me try to get to the other side here because I'm right-handed. Okay, here we go. It's watery, so it will drip a little bit. Let me turn this nozzle, see if I can tell the difference. It's probably round. I'll turn the nozzle one more time. And that's probably vertical up and down. All right. That's actually not too bad. It's a little bit loud, but it does spray pretty quickly. I think I'm about ready to go ahead and try some paint. Now I'm going to be using latex paint for my painting projects. And the big question with using latex paint and paint sprayers is always, should I go ahead and thin my paint? I am going to go ahead and give it a shot with thinning the paint a little bit. I'm using some Bare paint and primer, and it's pretty thin. It works well just for rolling, but I'm going to go ahead and thin it out a little bit. But how much? Well, here's what I'm going to do. It's just some ballpark math here. This thing is about 40 ounces, so it holds about a third of a gallon. So about 3 of these will be pretty close to a gallon of paint, give or take a couple ounces. The general rule of thumb with thinning a gallon of paint, latex paint, is to put about a half cup or about 4 ounces of water into the gallon. So 4 ounces of water into the gallon, but I can fit about 3 of these is a gallon. So I'm going to put about 1, maybe 1¼ ounces into this of water, right here, into this. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill it with paint up to the 40-ounce mark. That will more or less be the same thing as just pouring the water straight into the gallon and shaking it up. I don't really want to do that because I may use that paint for other things that I don't need to have it thinned. So I'm going to thin it right here in the actual paint sprayer canister. So about about 1¼ ounces of water, and I'm going to fill it up with latex paint. And we're going to give it a shot. One last thing before I get started here. Everything's just about ready to go. I am wearing painting clothes. I have a canvas in the back here to catch any overspray. I'm in my garage. My cars are pulled out. I got nothing within a 10, 20-foot radius of me that's going to get messed up if it gets a little paint on it. The reason I'm saying all that is because when you use a paint sprayer, you will have overspray. You will get dots of paint in places that you never thought they could get. So, to that end, I'm doing 2 things. I'm taking off my glasses and putting on a beat up pair of glasses, which I don't use anymore, and I'm removing my watch. Okay, I have poured the paint into the canister. The water floated to the top, so I have learned that I have to then go ahead and stir it. So I stirred it up pretty well. So now the water and the paint are stirred. It is a little bit thinner. Tightening this is a little bit hard. I'm holding it up. If I put it on the ground, I could probably tighten the sprayer around the canister. Okay, so we are ready to give this a first unrehearsed try with paint. Again, I got about 40 ounces, about 40 ounces in there with about a 1¼ ounce of water. And we are ready to give it a shot. I have it on the setting for the vertical spray, and I'm going to try it on this door. Again, this is an old door, not even really all that clean, but it's a good to kind of practice with paint, water, whatever, so you get a real feel for it. So when it comes time to actually do your projects, you're not making a mess, you're not surprised, you're not overshooting things, you kind of get a sense of it. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a shot. Here goes. Pretty nice. So you saw in the beginning there, I was going a little fast. I was going too fast, actually. And then as I kind of got used to it, the top line, I went nice and slow. When you actually use this paint sprayer, you don't want to turn your wrist a whole lot because then you start hitting the wood at different angles. You want to try to hit it at the same angle as much as you can and kind of go straight across it. I can see I made a spot right there. I'm not sure if that's showing up. It's showing up. But that actually worked pretty well. A lot faster than rolling if I actually do a whole door. I'm going to keep going. It does get a little heavy with the paint in it, so I'm kind of holding it up with my second hand. I am really impressed. We're going to let that dry. I'm going to give that a few minutes to dry. Take a look at it. I may have to hit another couple spots. But this is a good test. This is actually, I'm feeling pretty good about this. Again, completely unknown brand, kind of took a risk on it. I can adjust the amount of paint that's coming out with the little knob here. I put it right dead in the middle. By the way, it's the way you find that out is you push it all the way up to the top and you count how many times you roll it down to the bottom. I counted about 14, so then I pushed it back up about 7, so I'm more or less in the middle. By the way, there's also a little air filter on the back. You can replace that if you need to. It just brings the air in, that's what comes out. But here we go. So far, so good. All right, these are some of my closet doors. I have 2 sets of these, and I have a regular door that I want to spray paint. I know approximately how long it takes to do this by hand, because I actually painted this side, the other side, and then I'm going to paint both sides of the door. I painted them by hand about 3 or 4 months ago, so I'm going to go ahead and compare times and see how much time the paint sprayer actually saves me, as opposed to going in with a roller, letting it dry, second coat with a roller, and then the same thing on the other side. So here goes. Shake it up a little bit, make sure that water's staying nice and mixed. Okay, so I've just gone ahead and done the first side of 2 sets of doors. One of the issues I have found right off the bat is I have no idea how much paint's left, because the paint canister is covered in paint and the sides are covered with paint. So I'm going to open it up. I can feel it's lighter, but I'm not entirely sure how much lighter. Let's see, it'll be messy. And I have used probably about 1/3 of the 40 ounces there. I still have plenty of paint left. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this going. I need to kind of let this dry for a few minutes before I go ahead and put a second coat on and kind of see what I missed. So I'm going to go ahead and let this sit for about 10 minutes. I'll come back up. I'll give it a quick squirt. I want to keep everything in here wet, not let it dry. Because if it dries, if I leave it for 45 minutes, for an hour, walk away, come back, the paint will be dry here on the doors, but that also means the paint in these little mechanisms will also start to dry up, and that will go ahead and affect my sprayer, and I'll have to clean the whole thing out. So I'm just going to let it sit for 10 minutes, come back dry, do a quick squirt just kind of in the air, maybe right at a spot that I missed. Kind of keep doing that 3 or 4 times to keep this thing lubricated and ready to paint. Let the bulk of the paint dry so that I can go ahead and see what I have to hit. Generally, it's not very messy. I've actually been pretty lucky so far. Not a lot of overspray. I've been doing a good job. I've been fairly close. It does go on a little splattery or a little speckly. I was worried about that. But as it dries, it does dry a little smoother. So like, oh, shoo. But regular paint is the same thing. It kind of goes on with a texture, and then it does kind of smooth out as it dries and kind of spreads out. The water definitely helped to thin that out a little bit and make that work a little better. So we'll let it go. We'll see what happens. Cleanup is pretty straightforward. Here's the sprayer after my first use. I used just about all 40 ounces. I dumped the rest of the extra, had a little bit of extra paint, dumped that back into the can, that's fine. It doesn't look too bad, not rough, but all this has to get cleaned up really, really well. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unplug it. It's unplugged now. I'll take this off, and I'm gonna actually rinse out the canister there, full of paint, and then I'm gonna take these things off. Oops, take these things off as well. And I will go ahead and get them wet. Usually I have a bucket of warm water. I don't have that today. So what I'm going to do instead is use a little bit of water here. It's still warm. I'm going to try to clean a lot of that off. I'll have to use my brush in a second. There we go. Okay, that's fine. This is really the key. Make sure all those holes are cleaned out. Latex paint will come off very easily. If you're using a different kind of paint, you want to use the proper solvent. With latex, it's just water. Okay, that's a good start. Let me take out the little gap here. This is where that little wrench comes in. I want to loosen. There we go. I'm gonna loosen the nozzle, take the nozzle out. There's still paint in there, but that's okay. We'll get rid of that in a second. Get a little water going here. That's good enough for now. I'm gonna use my brush and kind of clean that out. There we go. I'm doing this outside. It's a nice day. I don't want to bring water into or paint into the house. There we go. Now the key is to rinse this out really well and then go ahead and plug it into the sprayer, and you're going to go ahead and spray water for 5-10 minutes. Just get as much as possible out. Just let it run, clean out all that other gunk. Water or whatever your solvent is should get rid of all the extra paint or stain or varnish or whatever you're using. So here we are, the sprayer mostly cleaned out. I have hot water in here. I actually went inside, got some warm water, and now we're just going to spray. There you go. And you can see I was using white paint, so I have a white patch of grass there now. It's okay, it's not a big deal. Once I spray some more, as I keep spraying, less and less white paint comes out, meaning that it's getting all the paint out of all the internal workings. So, now that I've cleaned it up, I painted a few doors, some projects. What do I think of the HomeRight $110 paint sprayer? Pretty nice. It's probably worth about $110. It did a great job with my doors. They are sprayed, clean. Most of the texture's gone. It did a very good job with that. I did thin the paint a little bit, like I said, but it came out looking great. What about time savings? Okay, so these doors, when I did them about 3 months ago, I did them by hand with a roller. And the problem with doing doors like this with a hand, by hand with a roller, is all these little crevices are really hard to kind of get in. And I was using a little 4-inch roller, and I still had a hard time. I used a sponge brush to dot it out, and it took me forever. Back then, by hand, it took me, these are 24-inch closet doors, there you go. Back then, it took me about a half hour to do a side. So I had to do a side in about 15 minutes, front side in about 15 minutes, and I would go ahead and wait for it to dry, and then I come back and do another 15 minutes, a second coat, and kind of get that second coat on. So 30 minutes for a side, both sides, about an hour both sides. I was able to spray one of these doors straight down in about 3. Let it dry for a little bit. Since the paint is a little bit thinner, it does actually dry faster. And do the second coat. Again, about 3, maybe 3.5 minutes. So let's say 7 minutes aside. Flip it around, another 7 minutes. I was able to do this entire door in 15 minutes when it used to take me over an hour, or about an hour, with not counting the paint drying in between. I thought do some touch-up, don't get me wrong. Little spots in here with a paint sprayer. This is actually a rougher wood. I probably should have sanded that a little better. I didn't really realize it. So I'll probably do a little bit of touch-up once I install the doors, but I'll probably scratch up the doors and scuff them up when I'm installing them anyway. So touch-up's always going to be kind of a factor in any kind of paint job. You will not touch up with this. I'll touch up with a sponge brush or maybe even a little sponge roller, but that's not a problem. I was able to get the bulk of the painting done, again, in about a quarter of the time. That's great. Same thing, I did a 32 by 80 door over here, just on the side. Same idea. It took me probably 20 minutes a side each time, so 40 minutes total on one side, so more than an hour to do the whole thing. I was able to do this in about 10 minutes per side. So again, really fast, nice cleanup, zip, 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 and you're done. I really, really like this. A couple things. I was able to get a lot of spray out of my 1/3 gallon, out of my 40 ounces. That's good. I was actually kind of surprised by that. I was expecting I'd be filling it. I did all these doors with just 40 ounces and they look pretty good. Again, a couple little spots here and there, but generally pretty good. Cleanup for this thing. It's really no worse than cleaning up with rollers and brushes and tans and everything else. You still have to kind of plan it out a little bit. I typically do my painting on nice sunny days when it's outside, because I like to clean up outside in the grass because I don't really care what happens. If you have a mud room or you have a washroom where you can go ahead and do that stuff without trailing paint through the house to the kitchen sink or whatever kind of sink you have, that's fine, that's probably better. But I typically do painting like this where I can go ahead and clean up outside. So I did clean up outside. It worked. It's nice and clean. The key with the paint sprayer, by the way, is making these things last, is to make sure you clean them really well before you put them away. Because as time goes on, all that stuff dries in there. There's a point where it's not coming out, and it gums it up and makes a mess. So next time I pull this out, maybe a week, maybe a month, who knows, I will pull it out. I will probably run hot water through here again and probably spray it again just to kind of loosen up and get anything out. Once I'm satisfied that it's spraying nice and clean, I'll take everything out, I'll put the paint in, and I'll go. Again, it's fairly light. By the end, my arm was getting a little bit tired, just because it's heavy with that 40 ounces of paint down there. But this itself is pretty good. This never got hot. I was expecting it to get really warm and start to get really hot. I never really felt any heat on it. I tested a couple times, I checked a couple times. Not a lot of overspray, it was very clean. I have almost no dots on my hand, a couple here and there. Even the sprayer itself is looking pretty good. There's a little bit of a fine mist here and there, just from kind of going closer and further away as I was experimenting with it. I did play around with the volume control, kind of lower kind of the volume of paint coming in and out. I didn't notice a big difference in my particular application, but I did it towards the end and I was just kind of ready to done. So again, I kept it in the middle for the most part, 7 rolls up from one side or 7 rolls down from the other, whatever you want to do. And it worked fine. I didn't have a problem at all. At some point I want to play around with some of the nozzles as well, because different nozzles and a different air gap will give you a wider or a narrower beam of paint, and then it'll be a finer mist for like furniture and whatnot. I can get a wider beam of paint and maybe get a little less fine. At some point I'm going to have to probably spray paint a basement or paint the basement. I may just do a roller for that because it's going to be hundreds of feet of wall. That might be, this might be too much, or that might be too much for a little sprayer like this, but we'll see. So overall, HomeRight, $110 sprayer. Is it worth it? Yeah, if you don't have a paint sprayer and you've never used one before, it's pretty good. The instructions are a little lacking. They're pretty basic, just how to assemble it, how to use it, very basic stuff, what nozzle to use, and that's about it. There's only like 3 pages of real English instructions, then it goes into other languages. So you may want to go ahead and read up on how to use a paint sprayer, watch some other videos, so take some of the tips here, but I'm by no means a pro. I'm not a pro painter. If I was, I wouldn't be using a $110 sprayer. I'd probably be using a compressed air sprayer. But for an electric sprayer, for 110 bucks, hey, it's worth it. It saved me hours of time on these doors. So for me, that's what counts. If you have any questions or comments about this product, please go ahead and leave a comment below. Go ahead and subscribe or hit the bell for notifications. I'm not entirely even sure what that does, but I do read my comments. I do check back. Sometimes it takes me a couple days, but I do try to go ahead and respond to actual questions about products when I can.